Mr. Mike Guy?
It's hard to be
Number
random
two?
and spontaneous with
He
the
just got
microphone
distracted.
like that. Is this one working? Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
India gets more press always. Yeah.
It's technology.
Right. And I think, you can break it down to, you've got to be it takes a long time to hire people that you can trust in those markets. So you just have to, double your lead time to hire the teams that you want. And you have to then pay them, fair or beyond fair, so they themselves are not subject to those temptations. And then you have to watch them real closely, like Mr. Gandhi said, very closely. For example, the guy who's full-time watching over our staff in Moscow is ex-Marine reconnaissance captain. And so he's seen, and that was during the first Desert Storm invasion. He's not really afraid to go into scary markets. And he's not afraid, with his top secret security clearance he has from the U.S. government to tell people what you're going to do and what you're not going to do and when you're going to get caught. He also was a forensics expert in forensic investigations for Deloitte & Touche in New York after the Marines. So he's kind of their worst nightmare to show up in the office if there's any corruption going around. But I mean, that's probably an extreme example. In Moscow, when we've got $1.5 billion of value under management, is worth having that extreme example. But I think in all of these markets, you just have to have somebody that you really trust there on the ground, who's really part of your culture, who can instill that culture there, and you have to give longer lead times to put together your team. You have to be ready to replace people. I'm sure you have, we've had to, and you have to make sure that you're paying them a decent salary so they themselves are not tempted.
Let me shift from this interesting background of corruption, because we could go on for a long time on just one separate piece of the puzzle, but let me shift to the macro picture of opportunity set versus capital chasing those opportunities in each of these markets. I'll just speak from my perspective. One of the reasons that our Asia Fund has chosen to focus on China and Japan and has chosen to consider India as a secondary focus is because of our impression that the amount of capital, particularly foreign capital, chasing deals that are available to foreign investors, because under India, the current law limits the opportunity set in real estate for foreign investors to a much smaller subset of the universe of available deals, simply put, primarily development deals that are of a larger scale, roughly said. And so we've chosen not to focus on India, thinking that it was trying to push our capital through a very narrow funnel, competing with a lot of others. Since we have a heavily India-weighted panel, Dilip, I know you wanted to jump in. Can you discuss that first? The deals you're finding, are there a lot of other guys lining up next to you, particularly foreigners, maybe even Mark or Parth, chasing the same product, and is that a challenge?
In India, we find deal normally being based in US, but having the Indian heritage. We feel we have advantage of leveraging the US experience and Indian heritage and navigating through many issues which have been talked about, the title work, the corruptions, and those things. I think having the US real estate experience helped us a great deal to understand the value creation in any transaction, or particularly the projects, because as a real estate developer investor, we look at the return on the specific project rather than the real estate company level. Of course, in India, lots of people go through the company level and take it to the public. That's the second part. But we are able to identify the sites, come up with the highest and best use the US knowledge about doing the due diligence on every aspect. We have a thorough checklist. In India, most of the people are doing the deals on a very speculative basis. So they can afford to pay higher price for the site than we can, but we don't feel bad about it, because we think on a long term we will come out stronger, or at least successful, because we did not pay that high land price and we did not take the title risk. Some people are taking so high risk there. And then once the land acquisition, which requires really substantial amount of time in India compared to here in US, you can enter into purchase and sale agreement and hire a good transaction attorney. You can forget about the title work. You are least worried about it as a developer or investor. In India, probably if I have to scale, say 100% of the work, maybe you are putting 25, 30, 40% or 50% of the work in clearing the title. And then worrying about the building and permits and things like that. So, but once you find a good site and good deal, number works very well, much better than US so far. So that's the part. And then once you have a good project with the good return and good fundamental, I think you can easily find the money.
So Dilip, you're suggesting that the foreigners that are competing against you for deals are actually chasing the higher risk deals, the ones where there's land issues. But what about the good deals, presumably the ones that don't have those risks that you're finding? Why aren't those foreigners chasing you against those same good deals?
I think, and I think it's an economy of the scale. Lots of fund I have seen. Most of the people who have gone in real estate are more financial engineering people, not knowing the nuts and bolts of the Indian real estate aspects. That's my humble opinion. I don't know, but I have not seen many people who wants to get their hand dirty, do the deal and create the profit. They want to just invest the money, shuffle the paper and make money. And that's just opinion. And so they have to put lots of capital out. So sometimes you have to put lots of capital out. What you do, you just put in money after money, and most of the deal I have seen is they have put money into the land speculation. They run out of the fund, and these are some substantial amount of the fund I have seen. They run out of the fund, project is not even yet started, it's in an early stage, and I don't know when those projects will get done. I have really serious concern.
Relative to this idea of too much capital chasing too few deals, I highlighted India in particular. Do Parth, you or Mark want to comment?
Let me comment on some macro numbers. The infrastructure requirement in India, and I'll illustrate that with a story or two also, is the bare numbers. They're talking about $500 billion of expected need of spending over the next 5 years, of which 20% is expected to be drawn from private funds. So we're talking about $100 billion of need. You know, even if it's off by 100%, it's still $50 billion, at least $25 billion of required need. And if you go down the road and if you start adding up all the different funds that are looking at it, there's no way you even approach 20 billion. So, you know, I'll differ from you on is there too much money chasing after too many deals? It's actually the other way around. We see strong deals, we see attractive deals. On the power sector, we see great deals in the ports, railways, urban infrastructure. Now, there is a downside to it, and the downside is you're in infrastructure, you're dealing with the government, and as has been pointed out repeatedly, you can have longer time frames to actually project maturity. You need to have processes in place which allow you to deliver these things on time. The Indian government has tried to address it with these public-private partnership models. But you know what I've found works is this advisory board that was mentioned. What you want to do, and what we have done, is bring on some extremely senior bureaucrats who, as opposed to having to pay somebody off, you know, have been classmates of the other guy, can walk up and say, listen, can you get this thing done for me? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay you, but you know, you owe me a favor. We do that all the time, where it's not about paying money. It's not about doing anything unethical. It's about going in and saying, this is right. Just don't sit on it. Please get it done. And so that sort of tends to work. To kind of talk about infrastructure, anybody who's flown into Bombay or Delhi, I'll tell you, I do the Bombay-Delhi flights. You come back to Bombay at 7 p.m., you're up in the air for at least 2 hours. I mean, speaking runways, you need just about everything. So too much money chasing too many deals, I got a different perspective.
Yes.
Let me